Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Z Watchables, where we take horrible movies and break them down by categories, trying to determine what makes them so awful, and occasionally what makes them not so terrible, sometimes enjoyable. I'm your host, Ryan Webb, and I certainly do not claim to be an expert in bad movies, but I have stayed up many a night and drank many a beer watching some truly terrible films. Loved every minute of it, so do not claim to be an expert, but I have put in my time. For our first episode, we are going to be examining the travesty, the god awful piece of shit that is Microwave Massacre. Microwave Massacre came out in 1983. It was directed by Wayne Berwick, produced by Craig Muckler and Thomas Singer, written by Thomas Singer, and the story was by Craig Muckler. Without further ado, let's jump into this crazy batshit film.
Dining will never be the
It's
same.
full cordon bleu.
I never tasted anything so unique.
It's delicious.
Dismemberment. Death.
Oh, man.
Distastefulness.
My hemorrhoids.
Microwave massacre.
I'm gonna crawl through there. Make it back out of here.
Underground, so we dig in the dirt. Do dirt like worm.
Before we can start getting into the categories and really breaking down this dirty hot dog of a movie, I'll give you a quick plot summary. Donald, played by Jackie Vernon, who's famous for voicing Frosty the Snowman in the animated films, is a construction worker who is fed up with his wife's cooking. His wife, May, played by Claire Ginsburg, has recently purchased a major electric microwave. It's a fucking enormous microwave. May, despite Donald's crumb bum complaints, attempts to make gourmet food with the microwave, when all Donald really wants is just some slop he can pronounce. He's not a man of fine taste. Donald comes home drunk one night and can't stomach May or her food. He kills May and stuffs her in the basement freezer. A couple of drunken nights later, he wakes up and he needs a midnight snack. He travels down to the basement freezer and, mistaking May's arm or hand for a sandwich, he bites into it, and he actually likes it. He spends the next week enjoying bachelorhood and learning how to be a cannibal chef. Uses the microwave frequently and gets a taste for human flesh, specifically female flesh. Donald starts killing prostitutes and preparing their meat, and for he and his construction worker pals. Somewhere in between all of this insanity, he visits a psychiatrist and a doctor. When he is at the doctor, we learn that he has a pacemaker, which will come into play later. Late in the movie, Donald is preparing human flesh in the microwave, and he drops dead due to faulty wiring in the microwave, which makes it lethal to people with pacemakers. That's the premise of this movie. Wasn't a great breakdown, but really, it's like trying to break down a fever dream. Doesn't always make sense, isn't always the most coherent.
My hemorrhoids.
So now, the categories for Microwave Massacre. Where to start? There's so much to unpack. We're going to start with worst quote. Lots of nominees. You honestly have to watch it. The movie is just bad one-liner after bad one-liner. But I narrowed it down to two. And it's really two that I really feel comfortable saying. There are others, but I don't know if I want to repeat them. First nominee, there's a dog named Napoleon in the movie. And he says, "Napoleon, I'm going to kick you in your Bonapartes." Honestly, probably the smartest joke in this film, even though that joke was written on the toilet stall wall of a middle school. The winner, though, of our worst quote category is, Donald has just killed May. He wakes up the next morning, he walks outside, and he says, "I don't remember leaving a wake-up headache." I literally watched that scene probably 10 times trying to decipher what he was saying. I don't remember leaving a wake-up headache. It's not a spoonerism. It's not like, I don't remember ever hung over This Wake Up, where it's wordplay. I thought he was just having a stroke. What the fuck is happening? I don't remember leaving a wake-up headache. You know, let's go with it.
Oh. Oh, I don't remember leaving a wake-up headache.
That is our worst quote. We're going to jump into the most unwatchable scene. We have a couple of nominees for this one, you know, besides the entire movie. But we're going to start with the opening, where I'll give it credit where its font choice in the opening credits is actually pretty solid. Really enjoyed the font choice. There's also a jump scare in the very beginning that really is not bad and sets you up for a movie that might be halfway decent. I was kind of all in. And then we get the most gratuitous shots of TNA I've ever seen. Not necessarily complaining, but it's obnoxious how pervy it is. And it just lingers on this woman walking down the street, and then you're like, oh no, this is the movie that I'm in for. Really felt bad for that woman. Next most unwatchable scene is during almost like a montage of Donald just killing and eating prostitutes. We have a woman that is lying awake on a table, and he takes a giant knife and spreads just an absurd amount of mayonnaise across this woman's chest in front of her body. She's kind of into it, but just seeing that much mayonnaise on a human, it's gross. It's enough to churn a man's stomach. So we have, and then he throws just a giant piece of bread on top of her. It's kind of hilarious, but the mayonnaise is just too much for me. Next unwatchable scene is he is watching TV late at night. He wakes up from a slumber and stares at the camera, which is probably the funniest scene in the movie. He goes for it. He really goes for it, and he's flailing about with a sandwich in his hand and a Budweiser sitting next to him. Hysterical. But then he proceeds to watch TV. I actually timed this for a minute and 10 seconds. We just see him watching the TV, and we hear the TV. We don't even see what's on the TV. But for a minute and 10 seconds, we just stay on Donald as he watches the TV. It's excruciating. Our last nominee is the scene where he kills May. And this is clearly, this is really like what launches the plot forward. May, his wife, who, this whole thing really feels like a fever dream pulled from the head of Rodney Dangerfield, and it's pretty terrifying, where each character is actually just a representative of a part of his psyche, and everyone is playing Rodney Dangerfield. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. So they're eating dinner in the dining room, which is so sparsely decorated. They're eating spinach-like food off of paper plates. I think the writer and director thought that we were supposed to empathize with Donald wanting to kill May, but in reality, if you watch it, May is actually trying to make an effort, albeit a strange one. But you know what? She's trying to bring some life into this marriage. She's trying to bring some spice into this marriage. She's trying to holler at this old man, and he will have nothing of it. He's come home drunk. He doesn't want to eat the spinach. They get in a fight. He is peeing in the plants. Some great sound recording, by the way. Anyways, end of this Rodney Dangerfield fever dream. He kills her. I'm going to say just because looking at that dining room is so hard to do, and listening to Claire Ginsburg, who is playing May, act in that scene, once again, I think her motives as a character did not deserve her getting killed, but listening to her voice, that is my winner for most unwatchable scene.
I am right.
All right, and the next category is what has caged the best. Not what has aged the best, but what has caged the best. This is what role could you insert Nicolas Cage, and just to take away the variables from this category, we're talking like mid-90s Nick Cage. Because in reality, he would have been almost of the right age for like a teenage role in this movie. But we're just going to say it's peak Cage, like Face Off, Con Air. So where could you put Nicolas Cage in this movie where it would be the best and improve the movie the most? Nominees are Napoleon the Dog. You know, I don't need to explain that one. Lauren Sheen, who plays one of Donald's construction worker friends, Roosevelt. Honestly, dude could be a fucking stunt double for Nicolas Cage. So that's almost a gimme. I really, although the Lauren Sheen one makes the most sense, I would have loved for there to have been a cop in this movie. So Donald kills like 97 prostitutes in this movie. I guess in LA in the 80s, they didn't give a shit about prostitutes because there is very little, there's no law enforcement ever that makes an appearance in this movie. So I really wish Nicolas Cage could have been like a detective who is questioning Donald during this time. I think it would have been a great role. Just throw him in a pair of like aviators, have him just like drive around saying insane shit. It would have really elevated the movie. So because that's not really the case, we're just going to go with the Lauren Sheen Roosevelt character. Nicolas Cage as a construction worker eating humans, might have been excellent. Quarter-ass internet research. One of the things I was devastated to learn, where I discussed earlier how difficult it was to look at the dining room in this movie, the dining room of May and Donald's home, really just honestly made me sick to look at this dining room. Maybe that's the point, but it turns out that Robert Burns was the art director in this movie, who was also the art director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. Hard to believe that, because there is such a mood and nightmarish quality created in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Robert really mailed it in on this one. I guess if once again you're going for that fever, because I can't say Microwave Massacre is a nightmare in the same way. If he was trying to make you sick, I guess he did succeed. One thing I did learn is also that Robert Burns loves lamps. There's probably like 73 lamps in this movie, all throughout the house, just like lamp on lamp on lamp. So, Robert Burns, wow. Can't believe they got you. Can't believe how shitty this movie looks. This was Jackie Vernon's last film. I guess he could afford to live off of that Frosty the Snowman money for a long time. This movie was shot in late 1978 in LA, but was not released until 1983 because I don't think anyone wanted to touch this piece of shit, and who can blame them? The model of the microwave in the movie is a Major Electric Microwave model X174A. That's important to know. That'll be on the test. This movie received a 34% audience score. Maybe a little high, but maybe the people that rated that were a little high, and who can blame them? This was not a surprise to me at all, but Rodney Dangerfield was actually the preferred choice for the writer and director, which this is a Rodney Dangerfield fever dream, and I think the director might have been anticipating having Rodney Dangerfield, so he simply told everyone to do their best Dangerfield impersonation. It is truly absurd. Truly absurd. He really dodged a bullet there. Rodney did. Next category is Low Point Valley. This is an actor, writer, director's lowest point in their career, obviously. This one, I didn't even write any nominees. There's a clear winner. It's Jackie Vernon. Sorry, Jackie, but this was his last film. He's awful in this film. He's old. He wasn't even the first choice. He's fucking lathering women with mayonnaise. Sorry, buddy. Low Point Valley, Jackie Vernon. The Al Pacino You Won't Watch My Fucking Television Set Award for Batshit Crazy Acting. Whew, lots of nominees in this one. Everyone is off their rocker in this movie. Claire Ginsburg as May. Once again, basically a female Rodney Dangerfield. Excruciatingly bad acting. She's also given some of the worst lines known to man. So she's up there. She's at one point like rubbing herself, saying that some men find her attractive. Whoa, outrageous. Outrageous shit. Next nominee is John Harmon as the psychiatrist in the film. At one point, Donald's feeling slightly guilty for killing and eating so many people. So he goes to a psychiatrist who's half asleep and who thinks that when the doctor finally does wake up, he thinks that Donald is actually discussing eating a woman out, cunnilingus, not actually eating women. And dude's all for it. Dude is all for it. He's, props to him for that. The actor in this role is beyond belief. Last nominee is, like I had mentioned him earlier, but Lawrence Sheen as Roosevelt. Where did they find this guy? I don't know. They probably actually went to a real construction site and just asked who wasn't busy, and then they filmed all of this dude's scenes. But the winner has to be John Harmon as Dr. Gestalt, who is a psychiatrist. On par for the movie, but chill out, dude. The Fat Guy Award. This award goes to the fattest person in the movie. And Jackie Vernon takes it again. He's Jackie, you're doing well in all these categories. There really weren't any other contenders either. Sorry, dude. But he did eat so many people during this movie, probably gained some weight, so he was kind of at a disadvantage because the role required a fat person. So you must be this fucked up to watch the movie. This is a category where we recommend a drug regimen that will help you maintain your sanity during the viewing of these movies. So you must be this fucked up to watch the movie. I think you're better off paying less attention to this movie. So I'm not going to recommend anything that's really going to keep you awake. What I would suggest is when the first credits start or when the name comes on, you take one giant bong rip and that's it. And then you just start destroying beers. Okay. I would recommend a 12-pack of Budweiser. Don't chill them. Make sure they're take the 12-pack down to your basement. Make sure they're nice and warm, and then just start putting them down. Probably the best bet. Hopefully you'll black out before the last third of the movie. That should really be your goal. Yeah, so 12-pack of Budweiser, one bong rip at the very beginning, and you should be set.
My hemorrhoids.
Next category is picking pots. This is where we actually find some potential in the movie. We try to showcase what kind of worked, the moments that we enjoyed. They're few and far between, but it's got them. It's definitely got them. So picking pots, trying to stay positive, picking potential. Honestly, there's one of my favorite parts of the movie involves two actors that are never again seen in the movie. They're probably the best part. There is a local bar that Donald frequents. Before he enters the first time, we just stay on two characters having a conversation at the bar. And honestly, the dude with the speaking role plays an excellent drunk. That's not easy to do. Really enjoyed that part. I'd mention this one again. This was the font choice in the movie. Excellent font choice. I mean, it ain't no Wes Anderson font choice, but it's perfect for what you're thinking is going to be a horror movie or a massacre movie. I'd mention this one as well, but it can be noted twice. The opening jump scare, not bad. It sets up a good tone for the movie. This one, I have ridiculed the dining room, and I will continue to. I will go to my grave ridiculing this dining room. In fact, it almost caused me to die. But there is some wallpaper in the dining room, and it's like this blue, brown, orange circles. Oh my God. I researched where I could find this wallpaper. It's amazing. So amazing wallpaper. Best thing going for this movie. Another potential is I was hoping if Microwave Massacre had done relatively well, had done, made any money, I was really hoping for some kitchen implement spinoffs. George Foreman Grill Massacre. Garbage Disposal Massacre, Dishwasher Massacre, Spatula Massacre. I mean, we could have had a whole fucking list, a whole subgenre of these kitchen implement massacre movies. Sadly, that was not the case. A moment that made me laugh was once again when he's watching TV and he wakes up from his slumber and flails about. The look on his face is hysterical. So I really enjoyed that part. Our last category is who fucked up the movie? How did this piece of shit come to be? We have some nominees for this one because not many people were trying to save this movie. This movie was kind of fucked from the jump, and we'll get to that. Claire Ginsburg, we've mentioned her. It's just really difficult to watch her, listen to her specifically. Thomas Singer, who is the writer and a producer. Wayne Berwick, who is the director, who this was his first feature film. He had mostly done sound in the past, and then I think had spent some time being a folk singer around Europe or some shit. Jackie Vernon, yeah. He did the best with what he was given, but he's also a nominee for who fucked up the movie. Al Troop, who plays the black construction worker, pretty terrible actor. And then when you just see them all together, it's like bad actor on bad actor on bad actor. So the movie sinks. It sinks. No one's there to save it. So he probably fucked it up the least, but still fucked it up. Lawrence Sheen, we've mentioned him. He was the one that I'm pretty sure was a real construction worker. They just pulled off this construction site. But because this movie was fucked from the jump, because this movie has some of the worst one-liners in the history of movies, where it's just bad one-liner after bad one-liner, and you can't escape it. It's just a loop. It's a bad one-liner loop. This goes to Thomas Singer, the writer. The actors were terrible, but they were also given some of the worst lines that have ever existed. So, an actor is only as good as the lines that they're reading. So Thomas Singer, you win the award for Who Fucked Up the Movie. And that's our show. If you haven't seen Microwave Massacre, I'm jealous. But for the, 83 people out there who have, I hope you're still sane. So here's to you. Cheers, Z Watchables. First episode done.